I can't believe I'm saying this, but I believe that week 2 in the NFL for your Seattle Seahawks is already a can't-lose game. I'm going to get into that here on Seahawks Today. I'm your host, Will Ortner. Now let's get into the video. After that week 1 loss to the San Francisco 49ers, your schedule, Seahawks fans, just got brutal in that first month. Not only are you playing the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road, you still got the Bucs, and you've got the Arizona Cardinals on a Thursday night game coming up. So already in week 2, I'm calling this game for your Seattle Seahawks a can't lose. Now, I want you to go and support me before we get into the channel. I am tweeting out constantly about the Seattle Seahawks. Right now, I'm at 860 followers. Join the crew. You're already watching all the content that we put out here on YouTube. You can get it first and faster if you head over to X and follow me there. I'm constantly giving my opinions, tweeting out videos, and frankly, you're going to get some other content that doesn't necessarily have to do with the Seahawks. Maybe you just like hearing what I say and the jokes that I make. But enough of the X talk. Let's get into this game. So the Seahawks are on the road. They're taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh at the stadium formerly known as Heinz Field. In my head, it will always be Heinz Stadium or Heinz Field, whatever the name for it was. Pittsburgh Steelers starting the year off 1-0. Frankly, if you would have told me they gave up over 30 points to the Jets in week 1, I would have thought that they lost that game by 30 points and that this defense would have taken a gigantic step back. At the same point, if you told me the Seahawks only gave up 17 points to the San Francisco 49ers and George Kittle left the game in the first half with a hamstring injury, I would have said, well, the 1-0 team is the Seahawks and the 0-1 team is the Steelers. Unfortunately, that's just not how week 1 happened for either team. Now, we're going to take a doctor's visit. I always like to start these initial previews by going through each team's injury report and kind of giving you the lowdown on some of the big names that may or may not be playing in this game. And we're going to start with the good guys, of course, and that is the Seattle Seahawks. Nick Emmanwori, your big safety, big nickel position player, I don't believe he's going to be able to go. Early on, it sounded like from head coach Mike Macdonald that Emmanwori was just going to have an ankle sprain. It was something he'd be okay, he'd come back from, and honestly would be playing in this game. Then, after a day to head on over to the doctor, it sounds more so like Emmanwori's dealing with a high ankle sprain. So much so to the point that McDonald's already talking about the potential for him to go on IR. Now, at the time of this recording, he is still on the week-to-week kind of list. McDonald hasn't given a true word or an injury designation for Nick Emmanwori, and he's not going to do that until he has to. But in the 5 plays that Nick Emmanwori played in against San Francisco, he was flying around, and I felt like he made a big difference for the Seahawks. He is going to be missed because the replacements, in my eyes, they just don't have the athleticism that Nick Emmanwori has. You have a guy that's big enough to go toe-to-toe with the tight ends. And when you're going against the Pittsburgh Steelers, frankly, you got to be pretty good to go against the tight ends that they have on their roster. And you've got a player that is fast enough to guard the wide receivers. Right now, do you think Ty Okuda is going to be able to stop Jonnu Smith? Do you think that Ty Okuda is going to be able to stay with Pat Freiermuth? I mean, goodness gracious, Darnell Washington is the size of an offensive lineman, yet he's running around in that tight end room, in that tight end position group with the Pittsburgh Steelers. In my eyes, you can't have Ty Okuda there, but then that means that you're putting Reek Woolen back out on the field because you're going with Devin Witherspoon. Devin Witherspoon's not bigger than Ty Okuda. He's not bigger than Nick Emmanwori, but there's some athleticism there that he has that not everybody else does. At the end of the day, you are really, and I mean really, going to be missing Nick Emmanwori in this one. When I look at the backups, or I guess I should say not backups, replacements, I don't love those options. We saw what Reek Woolen was able to do when it was his turn out on the field in key moments in game 1. Frankly, just didn't go your way. In my eyes, the replacements are not good. I don't love what you're going to do if you're not able to get through Nick Emmanwori. Now, there's another injury replacement or injury update that I need to give about your Seattle Seahawks. But first, today's sponsor. We are sponsored today by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if your picks are right, you could cash in. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. I was on Prize Picks playing this weekend. Tell you right now, should have played the flex pick option. Now I've got a lineup going ahead of this game for the Seahawks against the Pittsburgh Steelers. In my eyes, Cooper Kupp was a letdown week 1. I think he's going to have a big game, so I got more than 37.5 receiving yards. Defensively, I loved what Seattle brought against the San Francisco 49ers. I think they can bring Aaron Rodgers and crew back down to earth. That means lots of punts. I think Pittsburgh's going to punt more than 4 times. And then Jackson Smith-Njigba. He did everything right but get into the end zone last weekend. I think he's going to find pay dirt, and he's going to get in the end zone for the Hawks. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Now, you're going to get Uchenna Nwosu potentially back for this game. And that is a big deal for Seahawk fans because when he's been healthy on that edge, Nwosu's been, frankly, the best edge that you've had. Now, Boye Mafe and Derrick Hall have done great when they filled in for him, but there's just something different about having that veteran presence. We saw it with DeMarcus Lawrence at that rush edge position in the game against the 49ers, flying around, making plays all over the place. The other thing that getting Uchenna Nwosu back is that you just get stronger by addition. Now there's depth everywhere for this team, and when you have Boye Mafe basically coming in as a true rush edge, and he doesn't have to worry about coming in running situations, that's the best Boye Mafe that you're going to get. That doesn't mean that Uchenna Nwosu is going to be back for sure. Now he's going through the practice procedures, and I am hopeful that we are going to see him in some action. That doesn't guarantee it, but if he does come back, ooh boy, a defense that looked pretty darn good week 1, it's going to get even stronger. Now we jump over to the bad guys side, and the reason that I call them the bad guys is because anyone who is playing the Seattle Seahawks, even a player who used to play for my Oregon Ducks, they are now the bad guys because they're playing against my Seattle Seahawks. Now, on the defensive line, you have a key injury in Derrick Harmon. He's had a knee injury. He's going to miss, it sounds like the first couple of weeks. It isn't just an injury where, hey, he's going to miss this game. He's going to miss for a while. And then DeShon Elliott, the defensive back for the Steelers, he had a knee injury. He's going to miss time. He's going to be out for this game. That's why the Steelers were able to bring in Jabril Peppers. Now, Jabril Peppers is going to kind of fill that role for DeShon Elliott. Now, I would not say that he's going to come in right away and now he's starting and he's playing all 70 defensive snaps. That's just not fair to ask of Jabril Peppers. But he's the type of player that just gives you added depth. Seattle is going to have to be ready to take on this secondary. And when you're telling me that I'm getting a defense in Pittsburgh that gave up over 30 points to the New York Jets and they're going to be without some key points, you need to take advantage offensively. I want to get into 2 of the matchups that I'm most looking forward to. Now, some weeks it's going to be player versus player. Some weeks it's going to be unit versus unit. And frankly, this week, it's a little bit of player and it's going to be a little bit of unit. So, first matchup I want to talk about is on the defensive side. I need to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver unit versus your Seattle Seahawks defensive back unit, specifically DK Metcalf. We all know that DK keeps receipts, and we cannot let him have a revenge game against this defensive secondary that you have in Seattle. Now, the cornerback position, I don't know where you match up with him or how you plan to attack him. In some weeks, I would say, well, it's easy. Just throw Devin Witherspoon against him. In some weeks, I would say, well, maybe you throw Reek Woolen against him. After last week, don't feel super comfortable with that. Josh Jobe, I think, played incredibly well against the 49ers. The issue, he's a little bit smaller. DK takes advantage of those smaller cornerbacks. He's going to be hard to cover. Do not let DK go off against this unit. I think if you are able to slow down DK Metcalf from being that big play threat for Aaron Rodgers, this Pittsburgh Steelers offense is going to slow way down and not be able to hit pay dirt as much as they did against the Jets. The last thing that you want in life is to have your ex show up with an upgrade the next time you see them in public. You do not want to see DK Metcalf in public with Aaron Rodgers looking hotter than ever, having a bunch of yards, getting into the end zone a couple times. You got to find a way to lock him down. The matchup that I'm looking forward to offensively, who's going to help out Jackson Smith-Njigba? Like, that guy was unstoppable when it came to your game against the San Francisco 49ers. Who is going to step up and be that wide receiver 2 option? We already know that Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to be the number 1 target for Sam Darnold. Who is going to take the next step forward for him? Is it going to be Cooper Kupp? Is it going to be Torrey Horton? I believe that you're going to see Jake Bobo come back and play in this game. I believe he's going to get through concussion protocol. I believe that Derrick Young and Cody White are going to have some opportunities after what we saw in last week. Can you take that step forward and be that number 2 wide receiver, especially Bobo, who can be a great red zone threat? Now, you might be thinking to yourself, Will, you've went through all the breakdowns, the matchups that you're most forward looking to, and who do you have winning this game? Well, I'm biased, so I'm always going to have our Seattle Seahawks coming out on top. But in my eyes, I truly do believe this. I think if you are going to be able to shut down this wide receiving core of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Seattle's going to have a chance. When you play defense like you did against the 49ers, a very good offensive team, I think that you're going to have a chance in every game. Seahawks 21, Steelers 20. Sorry, Seahawks 24, Steelers 21. Easy for me to say. I want to hear your prediction. Do you think the Seahawks are going to beat the Steelers? Type yes if you're riding with the Seahawks and you know our hometown team is going to get the job done. Type N for no if you think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to come out on top. If you do that, frankly, don't really love that from you, but that's okay. Because you know what? Here at Seahawks Today, we try and love everybody, even when they're really freaking wrong.